didn't mean to press live. I meant to do the thumbnail. I accidentally pressed live. Sorry, guys. Caught myself by surprise there. Hope you didn't hear what I said, bro. Sorry, I'm just gonna go live on Facebook as well. Sorry about that. Come on. Hey guys, how's it going? It's your boy M.K.S here, back with another video. I went to do a thumbnail where I was holding my two phones like this. I ordered my new phone, and for some reason I'm not like my thumbnails to be a certain way. But then I accidentally clicked live when I meant to go and get my tea and all that kind of stuff. And I only meant to do a thumbnail and come back and then go live. But so I went live a bit early. But anyway, it's your boy M.K.S here, back with another video. And welcome to part 2 of my list of things that I think of, like the neurodivergent community being empowered on Friday. I know I asked before on Fridays, and I know I asked before about. I'm gonna make sure I press the right button next time on YouTube, because sometimes I mean to go. Sometimes I mean to press go live and accidentally change the thumbnail when I don't mean to, when I'm happy with the way it is or whatever. And then sometimes, like just now, I went live when I meant to do the thumbnail. But I messed it up. But anyway, never mind. It is what it is. But yeah, it's your boy M.K.S. back in the second part. As I say, but yeah, I know I asked before, like, what term do you prefer, neurodiverse or neurodivergent? And and I know I mentioned how I hope that at least one, or preferably both of these, will upload, and I hope to upload on as many video sharing platforms as possible. Just checking that. Hopefully both YouTube and Facebook are going live at the same time. So then Godspeed. At least one of them will upload properly. But yeah, I asked people, like, which one do you prefer, neurodiverse, centric, or neurodivergent? So please let me know in the comments. But I kind of prefer the word neurodivergent. I don't know why. I know I said it before, it sounds like a superpower, but I think of, like, yeah, for some reason I prefer the sound of that rather than neurodiverse. I think a little bit more. In fact, probably at some point a lot more, but I'm not sure actually. But I know I'm not much of a gent, so I'm not sure if neurodivergent gent would be the right description. The gent. I can be a gent, but I think being a gentleman is overrated in many ways. Like, if I get to a door before someone, I'll open it, but I'm not a big fan of, like, going on dates and paying for everything. And I'm not really a manly man, I've got to admit. I'm not really very macho, or what's the word? Manly, macho, masculine, and that kind of thing, basically. But another thing on that note, actually, I was going to go for my shower, and I feel a bit bad, but I left the shower running as well. I saw a spider, and I got freaked out. I forgot it was there earlier, and then I was hoping it would go away. And I went in the shower, and I suddenly remembered it, and turned around and I saw the spider there. And I freaked out. I chickened it. I bottled it, as they say. And I left. I feel a bit bad because I left the shower running, and I just I put my arm inside, like in the shower, but I washed my arm a bit. But I was kind of looking to see the spider, and I was like getting freaked out. So I bottled it, as I say, being a bit of a chicken. So in the end, I didn't really have a proper shower, I've got to say. I normally like to have a shower every night, sometimes about midnight and sometimes about 11 o'clock. So I normally have a shower at night and then wonder why I can't sleep. But I just feel like, even though I don't do any work, so to speak, I try and remember my joke. I think, like, what's the point of showering and then going out sweating and then afterwards, if you know what I mean? So I'd like, even if I don't do much hoovering, to be honest, unless I have to, but well, worst nightmare, maybe not, slight exaggeration. Spiders in a shower might be, but anyway, I think, what's the point of showering and then hoovering afterwards? Like, if you're going to sweat, or go to the gym afterwards or whatever. So yeah, I've got to say I have my shower at night. But yeah, it'd be interesting to find out what's the best time to have a shower. Oh, no, I wanted to have a bath, but it got really dark, so I decided not to. I just feel a bit uncomfortable in the dark in the shower. I don't know why. I know we had a power cut where I live 2 or 3 days ago. It only lasted for a few seconds, but I always like to keep this phone with me because if there's a power cut, I can at least get a little bit of light, because I'm terrified of the pitch black. So giving away too much there. But anyway, I'm going to crack on with the list. So these are points number 11 to 20. 11 to 20, and as per usual, I'm behind schedule. So here goes. So number 11, I have to say about changing perceptions. But I talked in part 1 about like changing finance and financially empowering neurodiverse people. I'd love to see how neurodiverse or neurodivergent, whichever term you want to use, could change perceptions and show what we can do, run our own businesses, learn to invest, learn from each other, learn how to manage our finances and change our financial situation for the better, and hopefully give a lot of our money away, ideally. I'd love to change neurodivergent people, like any neurodivergent person who's involved in like crime, criminality and that kind of thing. Smoking, drinking, taking drugs, breaking the law, joining militaries, gangs, terrorism, answering anything that's violent, unless it's in self-defense, answering or I was going to say going to war then, anything that's illegal or anything like that. I hope to discourage all those kind of things and change people's life and help them to become the best version of themselves. But these are all my own personal views, and obviously on these videos, so people might well say they disagree, which is fine, and some people might think that it's good to go to the military or whatever. I don't personally, but I try and listen to different views if I can. But I was thinking, because it's Friday as well, I'll talk more about the dream version, like next, because Thursday was the 13th. I diverted away from the original plan because it was the 13th, rather than talking about my goals for neurodivergent people setting goals, neurodivergent people in politics. I hope to talk about that next week. But they may well be more realistic goals, but dreams to me are sort of goals which are really unrealistic, like aiming for the stars and all that kind of thing, aiming for the sun or whatever, aiming for the moon or whatever, aiming for space or whatever. So yeah, these are my dreams for like neurodivergent people. Not that no neurodivergent person would join the military, gangs, terrorism, anything that's violent, unless it's self-defense, I say, anything that's illegal. I wouldn't want us to smoke, drink alcohol, take drugs, and trigger things like that. I wouldn't want us to break the law, stuff like that, and stuff like that. That is not stuff like that. Either way, but yeah. Also, I think maybe even we could get funding from the government. Now, normally I don't like. I know I'm a dull one, but I don't like to take money from the state unless I have to or whatever. I don't want to force the taxpayer to pay, mainly because I don't want to force the taxpayer to pay, but and I want people to have more choices. If someone just came and gave me money, I'd accept it, but I don't know why they would, to be fair. But I mean, if someone walked into my living room and whatever reason just gave me like loads of money, I don't know why they would. But as I say, I watch a show called Deal or No Deal. Sometimes I watch it, but back in the day I used to watch it religiously when it was presented by someone called Noel Edmonds. I used to watch it like pretty much all the time, basically religiously, as I say here in the UK. I don't know if they use that term overseas. I'm taking way too long to get to the point now, but I'll try and get to the point here soon. But when someone didn't win a huge amount of prize money, but it was quite big, but they didn't leave, because the idea is to leave with the highest offer. I don't know if I should go into too much detail about that, but if they lost the game, so to speak, but got a lot of money, Noel Edmonds once or twice said, if someone came into your living room and just gave you loads of money, I think it's like picking boxes, you'd probably be quite happy, even though you could probably, in this case, could get more. But yeah, I'm not saying because of any other reason, I suppose, then I don't want to force people to give money. That's why I don't want to take more money from the taxpayer. But I do think that if we, as a group, were to cut crime, and a neurodiverse network helped to cut crime, and we can find and say, well, actually, we've saved the government this much money, then I think we should be able to take funding. Obviously, not as much as that, and certainly not more than that. But we should, because we'd saved the government money. So if we could save the government billions, I think they should give us whatever amount. I don't know if we're really cheeky, we could probably ask for 90% of that back to fund us, but to say thank you for doing that. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I also was going to say about, before I move on to point number 12, I'll probably just say, in fact, I might say it's in point number 12, so I think I don't want the video to be going too long. I was going to say in point number 11, but I say about changes and stuff like that. So, but point number 12, I hope I don't forget anything, but I was thinking about famous neurodivergent people and inspirational role models. I'd love for people to talk about that. So on that note, please let me know who are some inspirational role models with dyslexia and stroke or ADHD, autism, and stroke or any other neurodiverse condition, who inspires you, even if it's like people who are not necessarily famous, like someone you work with, or someone you network with, or a family member, or whatever. But especially if it's someone like famous as well, I think that'd be pretty cool. But yeah, someone with a neurodiverse condition makes you proud, and stroke that someone with a neurodiverse condition you look up to, I think it'd be really cool. If it's someone that's famous, I guess people might be able to relate to that person more in a way, or maybe not, I don't know. But it's someone they might know the name of. Whether you say, my mum has a neurodiverse condition, she inspires me, that people might be like, oh, that's pretty cool. But yeah, some people might be more inspired by famous people, and some might not. But I'm thinking famous because it's like famous Fridays. But I talked about the one sport farmers, food restaurant entrepreneurs, food entrepreneurs or whatever, restaurant entrepreneurs or whatever. I know that's quite a difficult industry to work on, but I talked about like if we network together, hopefully we can make things easier for each other rather than harder. And I wonder if we can make business easy. Hard to imagine, but that'd be pretty cool. I mean, maybe there is someone out there who's found an easy way, or even easy ways to run business. Or some people might say there's no easy way. I don't know if that's true or not. Just because someone's experience of running a business is hard, it doesn't mean everyone's is necessarily. But maybe it is. I think this guy's no longer with us, but Bob Proctor, I don't know if he is or was neurodiverse or whatever, neurodivergent or whatever, but he said that the idea of working hard for money is silly, and he said Taylor Swift, one of the highest paid celebrities, or whatever, the highest paid or one of the highest paid celebrities, and he said the young lass does what she loves. So plenty of people work hard probably and don't make that much money. So I'd love to know different people's views, especially neurodivergent people. I hope neurodivergent entrepreneurs stumble across this and say, yeah, I run a business and it does take a lot of effort. Or yeah, maybe if we do network together, we can make it easier for each other, because I don't know why you'd want to work harder. I know sometimes having a challenge I think is better, but if I could get the same result and work less hard, I'm a bit of a, I was going to say a word then, but I didn't want to swear, I'm a bit of a beep. A bit of a person without a father, or A-double-S, or whatever you want to say. I try not to swear in these videos if I can help it, unless I put a trigger warning or whatever, or stuff like that. But yeah, I hope we can make it easier. And there was something else I was going to say. In point number 11, I was going to say, I know I want to focus on neurodiverse people, but I talked about business and sort of called tech hubs, and hubs for like people making games, and like video games, board games, or whatever, designing things and whatnot. Neurodivergent people doing that kind of thing. But so I wonder if African countries could have that, and they could be similar for black and other minority people in the West as well. What we call, I don't know if people still use this term, but BAME, standing for Black and Minority Ethnic here in Britain, or POC, people of colour, whatever, minorities, which I normally like to think of on like Minority Mondays, but or mixed up Mondays or whatever. But yeah, so I know I want to focus more on neurodiverse or neurodivergent people, but I was thinking more. I thought I'd mention that as a side note. I was going to mention in point number 11 because it's diverting a little bit away from the topic, so it's a bit different. So I say I'm thinking like change, but yeah, it's an idea I came up with fairly recently, relatively recently. So in the last week or two, I thought like, what if they were like business-centric or tech hubs? I know there are some in Africa already, and I wondered if people like me could fundraise and write to companies. And that reminds me of something I want to say before I move on to point number 13, which is thinking about like motivational people. I know I want to think about that more on Mondays, motivational Mondays, but like I'd love to know if famous neurodivergent people do motivate you, for instance. And if so, which ones do motivate you the most? I used to read about famous dyslexics before I thought about neurodiversity more generally. I used to see myself as just dyslexic. I didn't know about dyspraxia and other things, and potential autism or whatever I might have, or maybe even ADHD or whatever. But it'd be interesting if I had all those conditions like dyslexia, dyspraxia, ADHD, autism, dyscalculia, maybe even dysgraphia, like so 4 or 5, maybe even 6 of them neurodiverse conditions. That would be a bit greedy for me, but I think we could build a connection. So even if I only have dyslexia, for instance, or only have dyspraxia, or even only have dyslexia and dyspraxia, or whatever it might be. I can still connect with people with ADHD because we can come together under that umbrella of neurodiversity. It's expanding the networking, marketing, and that kind of thing, or whatever you want to call it. But yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like writing letter-headed letters and to call people who are more coherent than me. So I hope people understand this idea, but just like with the business and tech hubs and that kind of thing. So writing to Antric, making videos, maybe we can make videos together to send them to people like Richard Branson, Charles Schwab, John Chambers, Craig McCaw, and many others. Maybe even like there's a way to write to people like Bill Gates, who says he has autism and ADHD. I think some people say Larry Ellison has dyslexia. I don't know how much evidence there is on that. Elon Musk has Asperger's or whatever, or ASD or whatever you call it nowadays, the politically correct version or whatever. But yeah, what if we could write to those potential people to say, would you mentor us? I don't want to think of that. As I say, more on Mondays, like mentorship Mondays and motivational Mondays. But maybe we could write to those people and see what we could do. And also companies like banks like NatWest, Barclays, Goldman Sachs in America, and other places, respectively, to say, like, would you fund these business and motivational hubs and tech hubs, inspirational hubs, networking centers, and things like that for minorities and disadvantaged or marginalized, or whatever term you want to use, communities like black and other minority groups, migrants and refugees, ones that are here legally, I guess you can say, with America, and trick or neurodivergent people and see what they say. And if they say no, they say no. I suppose, as I often say, life is a numbers game. So if we write to 100 different organisations, and if it's a letterheaded letter, it probably could be just sent to lots of people, like with as an attachment through emails or whatever. So it could be done more easily. So it wouldn't have to be, you wouldn't have to keep writing it out or whatever. Or even one video that is like copied and pasted the link and sent to all these different organisations. I suppose we've got to be careful of not being accused of spam, but if it says like "we the undersigned" and it's signed by many neurodiverse people, I think that could carry some weight or whatever. But moving on, number 13, I know I like talking about the positives and the strengths, but there are also many weaknesses we have, and I think it's important to acknowledge both, so we know that even though we say it's a superpower, just like I suppose it's probably quite interesting. I think it is. I don't know if you agree with me, but like when they say, like, they've got the Batman thing behind me, but superheroes like Superman and whatnot have a weakness, or they have their alter ego character, or vice versa, or whatever. Like Clark Kent, who has many weaknesses, feels like he's dyspraxic, he's a bit clumsy or whatever. Yeah, I was thinking of the weaknesses because normally I think of a negative, or point number 13, but we can turn it into a positive, I guess, by working together and acknowledging our weaknesses. But I think it's important people know that. Like, so people might say, well, if dyslexic people are such good business people or whatever, for instance, ADHD people can be good business people or whatever, why they struggle academically. So it might not be the best academically, but we have other strengths. And I talked about my scary story about the spider in the shower. I was a bit of a chicken. I have lots of phobias. At one point, I wouldn't fly. I was phobia of the dark and that kind of thing. And it'd be interesting to talk about each other's stories and our weaknesses as well as our strengths. And from a selfish point of view, I like to put time for what you see in other videos. You'll know. You probably know what's coming there, or what was coming there. But moving on, number 14, I hope we can solve problems together. Something dyslexics can be very good at. Specifically, but I hope by working together again, like for instance, I know I forgot to say point number 7, but I eventually managed to get around to saying it. Forgetting things, that's a weakness, I guess, but we can help each other to remember things, we can mind each other of things, we can push each other. If we feel like giving up, we could help each other to keep going, and that kind of thing. So I was thinking like a network of neurodivergent people in business, I think, could solve pretty much all the problems together, because the problems of, like, if you try and start a new business, like not knowing what to do, not having enough knowledge and things like not having the knowledge, not having the information, not having the awareness, not having the funding, and things like that. By working together, we could put our money together. I suppose that could create a problem of like trust. How do we trust each other? So I think we have to find a way to do that and have like trusted accounts where we put money together and we know it's like sort of safe and that kind of thing. We can trust each other. I think if people try and rip each other off, that can work in the short term, but in the long term, I think it could bite you in the neck. So I think we need to build together. Although I'm not the most patient, and especially when I was younger, I wanted to start a business and make money straight away. But yeah, maybe we could make it quicker, easier, all that kind of thing. Whether it means faster and easier, makes those faster and quicker, yeah, what's the word? Interchange those words or whatever. And simple and easier. I'll mix those words up as well. But yeah, moving on. Number 15. I'd say I wonder what you think, and people out there, like, do you think by networking together, what, especially neurodiverse people, I'd love to know, do you think would help you to be stronger as being part of a network? And what do you see are some of the potential challenges of that network? And what do you think are some of the potential advantages and disadvantages of a network? Like the disadvantages, like how do we trust each other? What if people try and rip people off and they just want to make a quick buck or whatever? What if people feel annoyed if they don't think someone's putting the effort in, and we disagree with each other's ideas, or whatever it might be, that are unforeseen weaknesses? And what do you think are some of the strengths? And could it make business, I'll say, easier, faster, / quicker, simpler, or whatever terms? Again, I use those terms interchangeably, like faster / quicker, simpler / easier, or whatever. Yeah, moving on, number 15, I dream that we'll support each other's goals. As I said before, I'd love to see what neurodiverse people could do. And again, life is a numbers game, and I'd love to see how many neurodiverse people I can get to support, like town football, Celtic, libertarianism, maybe even people from former colonies, see what we could do for former colonies, raise awareness in those countries to say, like, this is what we can achieve. And again, like, you could have a dyslexic or ADHD student who really struggles academically, and someone who struggles with social cues. But what if the next Bill Gates or Richard Branson or Charles Schwab or whatever was in a classroom in Asia or Africa that you're missing out on because you're only looking at what they're weak at, but you're ignoring what they're strong at, and therefore you miss some of those talents. What if the next Richard Branson was the kid in India who wasn't given opportunities and that kind of thing? But yeah, I love to support each other's goals and tackle poverty and media suffering and that kind of thing. So I hope we can help each other. I hope they can help me and I can help them, and vice versa, and that kind of thing. Number 16, and hopefully we can discuss what are the best ways to support each other, what are the most empowering fields to be in, what are the best ways to support businesses. Again, what are the most simple and easy ways to make money? Again, some people might say if you try and look for the easy way, you'll miss putting the work in and whatever. But as I say, if I was going to move a table or something that I felt was really heavy, if I did it on my own, maybe I couldn't do it at all. And of course, certainly it would be very difficult. But if I worked with another person, it would be hopefully potentially half as difficult. And then a problem shared is a problem halved, and that kind of thing. And even like the other things, like even when we have more positive things, we can share it and multiply those things, 10x our money, 100x our money, or whatever, and hopefully give it away. But that's my opinion. Yeah, I'd love to know what are some of the potential weaknesses and strengths with networking together, neurodivergent networks, in different fields. So in business, finances, money, making money, investing, saving, and whatever else. So yeah, I'd love to know what are some of the challenges with networking together, and what are some of the opportunities. I suppose you could say weaknesses, strengths, threats, and opportunities. Opportunities, sorry. I normally like to say the best to last, by not being able to get words out. That's a different one. But number 17. So yeah, sometimes it's difficult to imagine, like, yeah, what if the network would make it difficult? It actually would make it more difficult rather than easier, and sugar would make less money rather than more. Or just generally having my doubts and negative fears and whatnot. But I'm sure if we work together, hopefully we can make more money and more easier, which sounds dead sexy if I can say that. It sounds dead cool to make more money more easier. And I wonder if that is an autistic thing about me. Like I sort of I'm too honest in some ways. A lot of time I'm a bit spineless and I don't want to offend people and avoid conflict or confrontation. I won't say the word. I avoid it all the same. Probably because I can't pronounce it as well. But if I was honest, like if someone said, "Would you rather work hard and make less money?" I mean, or would you rather work less hard and make more money? I mean, people might say, "Well, no, what Sherlock, what Shenton and that kind of thing." They might say, "Well, in other words, obviously you'd rather work less hard," but in reality, it is harder. But I suppose I'm too honest in many ways. I sort of say it, and idealistic. I'm a dreamer as well, so I sort of say, "Yeah, if I could, I'd work less hard somehow, if that's possible, and make more money." As my brother said to me, like I said, I'd love for there to be robots and that kind of thing. I said, I'd do even less. He goes, "How can you do even less?" But even things like doing the dishwasher, putting the clothes in the machine, hanging them, to bring them from outside, taking the bins out, and that kind of thing. I wouldn't do any of those things. But yeah, I suppose I'm too honest in some ways, although sometimes I'm too spineless, to be honest. Otherwise, I just say what's on my mind in the politest possible way. And I don't like to offend people, and it will come across as offensive or be rude or whatever. But another thing I think of is like I was thinking of another word that begins with F, which is failure, which is something I don't like. Making mistakes. I should be used to making mistakes and even failure by now. But as some say, the only failure is not trying. I don't know if I agree with that, but I suppose not achieving something in the long run. So, like, if you don't learn to drive, you could say you've never failed because you never took your test. But then again, you have failed because you haven't proven. If you don't run a business and you later on regret it and think, "Oh, I hate my job," I don't hate anyone or anything. But if you say, "I hate my job," but you don't do anything to change it, you could say you haven't failed because you haven't tried. Whereas some people might look at someone who's tried that business and say that person's failed. Whereas at least they are one step further because even though they might have lost a bit of money. I suppose if you bootstrap a budget, it's not going to be too bad. But I call it fail your way to success. So you find ways how to avoid those mistakes. As the saying goes, the person who invented the light bulb or whatever said, "I found 1,000 ways not to do it or whatever, and then I found the way to do it. So I haven't failed, I found ways not to do it." Although it might feel like failure and that kind of thing. But I used to really care about my grades, but now I think going back, I probably won't really care. Back then I used to think I really want to be clever and smarter than everyone else and whatever. Or at least as smart as everyone else. But back then I wished I was a genius and that kind of thing. But yeah, now I'm into philanthropy. Obviously having that money would help. But yeah, moving on. Sorry, I was going to say a few other things, but I'm waffling away. So I'm going to move on to number 18. As I say, I really hope and I think, and I suppose it's different in reality to how you think, and it seems easier. As my cousin used to say to me, everything works in your head, but when you put it into practice, it's different. Or I suppose is what I'm trying to say. And he used to lecture me and say, "Stop talking about your ideas and actually get started with something." And I think he was very right. Looking in hindsight, I used to think, "Why is my cousin having a go at me?" I think he cared, and I believe he was right, and I believe that young people, I think they should just start business, bootstrap it, and if it goes wrong, at least you've lost an amount of money, but that you can afford to lose. But that's like instead of going to uni, you've learned from your mistakes. As long as like you jot them down on a notepad or type them up or whatever. Save all the notepads for me, all the notepads in the world. But honestly, so as long as you learn from your mistakes, it's probably better than going to uni or things like my opinion. But I'm not the biggest fan of academia personally. I've said that in the past as well. But number 19, I say I'd love to support as many projects by neurodivergent people as possible. I'd love to interview people at neurodivergent businesses. So from those interviews, a bit like a podcast, hopefully I will help them to promote their businesses and other projects, filmmakers, farmers, people in finance, banking, and all sorts of different industries, or even just regular jobs. And I'd say supporting each other's YouTube channels and things like that, and hopefully helping them to monetize will help our finances and hopefully get to a point. And number 20, I think there's a lot I think there's a lot younger people can learn from older people, but nowadays with tech and things like this, probably a lot older people can learn from younger people that they don't think. And one of my, I suppose, being contrarian. I don't know if you can tell in my videos, but I'm quite contrarian to the regular thinking. I'm a big fan of thinking that common sense is overrated, but that's just me. People might disagree with me or whatever. But yeah, I like to think contrarianly, and I love the irony. Like, I love if people said business has to be hard, but actually enjoying something. Like, I often think, like, if I wrote a book and actually enjoyed writing that book, actually made a video and actually wasn't so nervous in my videos, and actually got to the point more quicker, and actually enjoyed these videos, which I try and do. But if other people enjoyed them and actually you can make money, whereas like working in a factory which you really don't like and don't enjoy, you might think, oh yeah, that's the way to get ahead, but actually it might be stuff that you enjoy and it's fun. I love the irony of that, like contrarian thinking. Or people say you've got to go to school and do all these things your parents say. But yeah, what if it's actually the opposite to what they say? Some say success is the opposite to what they teach you in school. I don't know if I entirely agree. I certainly think it's very different. I don't know if it's completely opposite or whatever, but maybe I'm taking it a bit too literal. But yeah, they say like be more disruptive, work together in teams, don't try and do everything by yourself, and all these sorts of things. As Simon Squibb says, 1 + 1 is 11, and that kind of thing. Which brings me back to the networking together. Yeah, I hope we can support each other financially in finances and whatnot. But yeah, my least favourite saying, that's what I was going to say, is like respect your elders. Not because I think we should disrespect anyone. I just don't think we should respect them anymore. Although I'm an older myself, but I think like we should be leading as examples as old fogies to the young, rather than them teaching us manners. Like, and also, what does respect mean? Does it mean doing everything for someone? What does it mean just being polite and saying treat them how you want to be treated? But I could go on about that all night, and I'm not going to. So I'm going to get my tea before it gets cold, because I went live way before I planned. So I didn't want to say I'm going to go get my tea in the middle of a live video. Maybe I could have done, but anyway, on that note, I'm out, and peace and love.